Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 926. My opponent started off with d4 and I went knight f6. And we headed into a Nimzo-Indian, which is pretty standard. He goes e6. I go e6, he goes knight c3, allowing the Nimzo. He can avoid it with some of these other moves, but he allows the Nimzo. And then here he plays the pretty rare move queen d3. So this was called the Mikenas attack by Lee Chess, but you can see there's only one game in the database here, and the chess engine really doesn't like this. It already starts to give black an advantage in this position. The most common response is e3, the Rubinstein, the way I play it, although I would say that's a bit old-fashioned at this point. The most common response among modern players is queen c2, the classical variation, and certainly a fine way to play. Queen d3 looks similar to the classical. It's defending the knight. But yeah, maybe just the queen is not well placed on d3 somehow. Anyway, I played c5, which you can see is the one line that is in the database, although these other lines are quite playable too. It turns out that castles and d5 are all good for black, so lots of ways that black can play here. And then he went e3, and after that we're actually out of the book. So I thought I would just follow this opening line a little bit to see maybe what the idea is. With the queen on the d file, you can push that pawn forward, and black can ignore it. You know, I'm always tempted in these situations to play d3 or d6 immediately to stop that pawn from coming forward. But if you think about it, after black castles, if white pushes that pawn forward to try and give you this weird pawn structure, it also frees up the c6 square for the knight. And you can probably just surround that pawn and round it up somehow. So you know, it's just getting too far ahead of its fellow pawns. So it's probably not good for white to push. Although it always makes me a bit nervous to have a cramping pawn like that so far into my position. But anyway, let's continue with the line. Say bishop d2, takes, and then d6, g3, and then well, b6 seems kind of weird, but this all seems to be okay for black. The knight will come here, maybe looking at this square, the rook to e1. Maybe the idea with b6 is the bishop can come out here to if I play b6, I could put the bishop on a6 with the knight supporting it. That might be an idea here. But also knight bd7 rather was also approved by the chess engine and gives an advantage to black. But anyway, that's something you can try if you want a sort of offbeat position. I guess from white's point of view, white's going to develop the bishop here, support that advanced pawn, maybe push the e-pawn forward at some point, develop the knight and castle. So, but as I said, the chess engine actually prefers black in that position. So let's go back to what happened in the game. He just played e3, which I think is pretty logical. I mean, I'm always thinking about taking that pawn in a position where he takes back with a piece. Then he'll have you know, a piece on this d4 square that I can later try and harass. And there'll be, like I said, a slight hole in his pawn structure. So anyway, he went e3 supporting that. I castled. He went a3 kicking the bishop. I traded. So all this seems to be normal, although the chess engine does prefer queen takes c3. I mean, you've got your queen out there. Why not use it? It gives a, you know, gives a few moves to black. Black can play the knight there and push the f-pawn forward. That's one idea, to support the knight. So perhaps white didn't like that and took with the pawn. But as I said, we still keep in the range of even or slightly better for black throughout this whole opening sequence. So he goes knight f3, I go knight c6, goes bishop e2, and I go e5. And now he goes d5, which is actually a blunder. If you didn't see the game, and if you're not looking at the right side of the board, maybe you can figure out why d5 is a blunder. What's the refutation? Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. I didn't play this. Actually, I noticed it the next move, but I could have played e4 right here. I don't know why I didn't play this. Well, I do know why I didn't play this. I made the move knight to e7 just very quickly. I'd been playing some faster time control blitz, I suppose, and I was in the habit. I was in the rhythm of moving quickly, but well, you know, these opportunities don't come along too often. Should really take advantage of it. And of course, the pushing the pawn forward here is attacking the queen, which is a bigger threat than attacking my knight. So he has no time to take my knight. And I can take a piece, and now he's a piece down. And if he tries to get a piece back, I can take another piece. So I end up a piece up in this line, no matter what white does. So that would just be winning immediately after d5. Anyway, I went knight e7 here, playing too fast. He now shut down this idea of e5. Oh, I meant to back up here. Instead of playing d5, white still has a playable position here. It's really d5 that's a blunder. The chess engine likes black, as I said, but it's not like it's winning for black. So he could play d5, e4 rather, here rather than pushing on d5, and then I could trade and play bishop to g4, and then he could push d5 now, and this looks like it's, like I said, a playable position for white, slightly better for black maybe, but okay in any case. Anyway, he went d5, I went knight e7, and he went e4. So we get to this position where, once again, black is slightly better. I continue with my knight maneuver, knight g6, he castles, go knight h5. You know, I was trying to figure out if he could exploit this, but this all seems to be okay for me. For example, if he takes the pawn now, I can take back with the knight, and I'm hitting his queen, so that even though my knight is hanging, he has to save his queen first, and then I can retreat this knight or defend it. Probably retreating, because because if I defend it, it'll get taken off and mess up my pawns here. But anyway, I'll be just up there because he sacrificed a piece. So that tactic just doesn't work here. So I went queen c. Oh, he went queen c2. He gets away from my knight, and I go knight h to f4. So I'm not in the glare of his bishop anymore. So I had just enough time to get the knight to f4. Let's see, he goes bishop to d1, dropping back. Chess engine didn't particularly like that, especially because I follow up with f5. f5 turns out to be a good move. It actually would defend the bishop like this with rook e1. And then after bishop g4, then he would drop the bishop back. And just slightly better, he got the rook out to a good post. And apparently it's not especially great for me to trade off his bishop, although I would have certainly thought about that, getting rid of white's bishop pair there. Anyway, he went bishop d1 immediately, preserving his bishop pair, and I go with f5. And this is just a good breakthrough for black. Things are opening up. I've already got my two knights, the close-in fighters, over on the Kingside. This will open up a path for the bishop to get into the game, and the queen also will be able to get into the game, although actually these squares are covered by his knight, so a little bit of time to get there. But my bishop comes in very quickly, because however the exchange happens, the bishop will get to this f5 square with a tempo on the queen. Let's see, so he played g3, kicking my knight, a reasonable try, but maybe just retreating the knight would be better. That was the chess engine recommendation. I would still have a good position after this. F takes e4, queen takes e4, bishop f5, and the queen drops back. And, you know, his pieces have all been pushed back to the back rank, and now my queen can come into the game. So that's how the chess engine would play it, and it would just try and hold on. Anyway, he played g3, kicking my knight, but the knight doesn't have to move. I was now aware of some of the things that are going on here, so I just took the pawn here. If he were to take my knight, this actually leads to a winning attack for white. I wasn't entirely sure in the game, but the chess engine, a winning attack for black. The chess engine is quite convinced. So I take with the pawn. He takes back, so he's gained a pawn here. Well, momentarily I get this pawn, and actually I ended up a pawn up, right? 3 pawns to 2, and then it's even over on this side. But the bigger problem is not the number of pawns. The bigger problem is my queen coming here. And, you know, once again, I've got all of these pieces pointing at the king side, even the rook. And when the bishop comes out, the other rook can come over. So it's just a very fast attack. And black is just winning there. So he played queen takes e4, so that's the correct answer rather than taking my knight. And let's see, I went bishop f5, hitting his queen. He dropped his queen back to e3, played knight h3 check. Tried to finally get my knight out of trouble. I think the chess engine found even some more clever moves to leave the knight there. But anyway, I saved it, and this seems to be a good move. And he went king g2 here. And I went queen e7. You know, I was putting my queen on the e file with ideas of supporting this pawn going forward and bringing room for the rook to come over. And also, you know, it's often the case when you have a light squared bishop, only one bishop, then you want to put your queen on a square of the opposite color because between the two of them, they cover all of the squares on the diagonals, right? The queen covering the dark squares and the bishop covering the light squares. But in this case, queen d7 is just a much stronger move. It's because white over here is so dark on the light squares that this battery becomes very dangerous and allows me to sink a piece here. So, for example, let's see, he could try knight to g1 to try and keep control of some of these squares. Knight takes, king takes. I can push on with e4, gaining control of even another light square. Let's see, he could play queen g5 to try and defend like this, and then the knight can hop around to e5. And yeah, this is just a great position for white. You know, the bishop can come in here, the queen can be chased away, and it's just a very dangerous situation. In the game, after queen e7, he had some ways to defend. He could have played, for example, knight g1 here, and if I follow the same line, I take, he takes, maybe bishop h3 down to chase the rook away, and then queen f6. There's a possibility of his queen and his bishop coming over and defending some of these squares. He's got the queen and the bishop controlling this square here, for example. And the attack is just not as quick. So perhaps white can still defend that. I don't know. It would be a tough game for white, I think. Let's see. Instead of knight g1, he went knight to g5. And this is losing. There's a cool tactic here I missed. If you want to find another tactic, see if you can spot this idea. Okay, pause the video. If you want time to think about it, I'm going to give the answer away now. I can actually sack a knight here on f4, because after he takes it, I'll take back with check. And then after the king moves, this knight is loose. So I basically win a pawn there, open up his kingside, and then get my piece back. So I win material and continue with the attack. So that's a cool tactic. Anyway, I just took his knight, which is also still leading to a, I think, close to winning edge for black. He takes, and then I went queen f7. Once again, queen to d7 would have been a better move, setting up that battery again. I don't know, maybe it was just a blind spot of mine during this game. Let's see, and he got his bishop in to h5. He could have played bishop to f5 here, and this is a way to pretty much, well, it doesn't entirely neutralize my attack, but this is the best defense. And as I said, it's one of those positions where black is better, but white can play on. And that would not have been possible if my queen were on d7 and I had that battery. So it's a way of preventing his bishop from getting into the game in an effective way. But he didn't play bishop to g4. He played bishop to h5, attacking my knight and pinning it. But this just doesn't work out. I can kick the queen away. He can throw in the exchange here. And in fact, that is one of the best moves, top engine choice. So because he's attacking my queen, I'm attacking his queen. So I have to take back, and then he has time to drop his queen back. But once again, I'm dominating over here on the light squares, and now he's lost his bishop, the bishop that defends light squares. I went bishop to h5. I think that's not necessarily the best. The chess engine had some funny suggestions here, like bishop to c2, which I don't quite understand. Also, bishop f5 makes sense. I understand that one. Maybe bishop f5 and queen here, or the queen can come out to g6 or h5. Start to coordinate on those light squares. Anyway, I chose bishop h5, And then he went rook b1, which basically loses the game. His best defense here would be f3. And then I might try to bring the other rook in. Then he could play bishop to d2. And the fight would continue. I've got a lot of pressure on this f3 square, but he's got it defended at the moment, and I have to do some maneuvering. I think queen g6 was a suggestion, or bishop g6, just kind of shuffling the pieces around to try and find the most effective way to attack. His pieces are still a little bit out of the game, and he does have the dark squared bishop, so as long as I am attacking on the light squares, I should keep an advantage here. Anyway, rook b1, as I said, loses. I could have immediately played the tactic that I spotted later in the game, but anyway, you want to take a second here and see if you spot the tactic. Okay, the key square here is, I'm giving the answer away now if you want to pause the video. The key square here is the f5 square, and the queen can come to f5 with the tempo on the rook. After the rook moves, then the bishop can come in here with check. After the king moves, then the queen can come in there. So already queen f5 was a winning move here. I played bishop f3 check, which actually still keeps the advantage, but I mainly played it because I hadn't spotted this idea of exploiting the loose rook. He went king g1, and now queen f5 is definitely called for. I played b6 instead. And what's funny is that he still can't defend this position. It's already gone south at this point. For example, if he plays bishop to d2, I can play queen to d7, and he still can't he can't stop me from coming in on the light squares. So even though I missed that queen f5 tactic twice, it doesn't matter because he's so weak on the light squares. I just have to exploit that. Let's see, he went h3, and now I spotted the idea. So this is a double attack, threatening the rook and threatening queen here, which leads to a mate that he can't stop except by sacrificing his queen for the bishop. So he resigned at this point. Anyway, it was a nice game, lots of cool tactics, and this is a game, I guess, that shows the advantage of the opposite colored bishops. You know, when you control the light squares, then lots of tactics can pop up if you have complete control over one color complex. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.